My name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank. I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Hi, welcome to Stairway to Redemption. This week, my guest is Katie. Katie and I met in an outpatient program I go to. It seems to be a recurring theme if you follow the STR podcast. What do you want me to say? I meet most people in my outpatient program and in other places like AA. And Katie has been very instrumental in making one of the episodes called Doing It the Smart Way. She was the one who introduced me to Michael Hooper, outreach director at Smart. Um, so after helping me produce an episode, Katie is now comfortable being the guest of one. And without you, I gave you Katie. Katie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Katie, and I am addicted to instant gratification. That's how usually I'll just say I'm an alcoholic wherever I am, but that's like the extent of it. And yeah, so we met in outpatient, and I am currently going there, and that's me.
All right. So the first, if you listen to this religiously, I can tell you listen to all the episode actually. But you so the first segment of this is the state of the mind address. Today, as we're recording, we are December 28th, so we are in between Christmas and New Year's. How was your holiday? How is your state of mind in this holiday, festive period? Yeah.
I love Christmas. I'm like really lame. Apparently, that's like not cool. I don't know, but I love Christmas. I think it's great. Um, and a lot of people struggle with the holidays and uh, family and being around alcohol and things like that. And I just, I'm like the only drinker. I'm like the only person that does any of this in my family. And as long as I'm behaving, like it's a good time. Like the only bad Christmases have been because I've been doing something ridiculous, like drinking like wine in the bathroom and pretending I wasn't doing it, like just stuff like that. So I feel like I'm very comfortable. Like as long as I behave, it's going to be a good time. So, I'm happy that it's the holidays and even New Year's or whatever. It's just, um, I haven't drank in over 3 years. I haven't had a drink.
Mhm.
But I had to relapse in June when I had a surgery, and which is like a common thing that happens to us. And I decided to go back into rehab, and it's been really helpful. Um, but yeah, this holiday, it's a good holiday.
All right. So yeah, you can use it as a segue to what brought you then to the outpatient program? You said like you relapse in June. What's your story basically from whenever you want to go back to now to the outpatient program?
Like I said, I'm addicted to instant gratification. So my first addiction was food. 100%.
Okay.
And I always say that you can see me. I'm 11 years old. I'm depressed, and I'm like, well, at least I can have dinner later. And you fast forward 15 years, and I'm like, well, at least I can drink later. It's the same exact feeling. It's the same exact compulsion. Everything is exactly the same. Um, and um, I'm trying to just quick, but like I had a gastric bypass surgery in 2008, and I never drank. I was never like a partier. I mean, I dabbled or whatever, but and they say there's something called transfer addiction, and I just didn't think it was going to happen to me because I never really liked drinking or doing. I didn't do drugs or anything. But when you have a gastric bypass, like you get drunk so much quicker and so much more intensely, and you also don't have your coping mechanism of food. You can't eat as much of it in the same way that you did, and it was just it was bad. And I mean, I became a drug addict in like 8 months. I was just pills mostly, and alcohol. But and that's what happened in June. Fast forward all the way there. But I had a surgery. I wasn't even supposed to get painkillers. It was supposed to be a same day surgery, but it went like awry. So it was a lot more complicated than it was supposed to be. And they sent me home with painkillers, and I had to stay in the hospital. And that's basically my, but one thing led to another, and I couldn't stop taking them. And I was stealing them from my mom, and then I transferred to like other things I could abuse. It's kind of hard to get your hand on pills, and I eventually just kind of spiraled. And it's my biggest thing that bothered me is like I didn't even understand that I relapsed for a long time, for like months. I
Mm-hmm.
told myself that I didn't relapse. I'm stealing pills and all this. And I'm like, oh, well, I really need them. But I was obsessed with them. And then eventually I was like, I was smoking pot, I'm telling myself it's for anxiety or whatever. And I got really, really messed up before I went into work. And I just realized like, oh, I relapsed like months ago. Like it's like in that moment, I'm like this is months ago this happened. And I went back into rehab, and I'm glad that I did.
And you went back to inpatient first before coming into outpatient when you say you went back to rehab.
No, I went to the intensive outpatient. Um,
Okay.
I and I'm I've been to inpatient though. I mean, I actually when I first got sober, that it stuck. It was in March. Well, I was put into inpatient rehab. I was mandated for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
upstate, and I came out in March of 2020. And the week after I came out was quarantine.
Ooh.
Um, so yeah, everyone's like, that's hard for people. I feel like it helped me tremendously, like because I didn't experience the like for like anything with COVID the way most people do because like everything, I was just an inpatient upstate in the middle of nowhere for 3 months. I couldn't have my phone. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't call my friends. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave the premises. So with quarantine, it was like, it still was an upgrade because it was like, oh, I have my own TV. I can talk to my family. I can cook the food that I want. So I feel like I
Mhm.
had just such a different experience than like most people did through that whole time. And it kind of kept me like safe where I couldn't, because I was going right back home where everything, I'd been crazy and prowling around. And um, and I also there was these Zoom meetings for AA, and I just didn't have an excuse not to go because it's like, what else are you doing? And it kind of also let me have like a pause button where I didn't have to like play catch up right away. Like, oh, I have to go get a job, I have to do this, I have to do that. Like I was able to just kind of ease into sobriety in this way that I'm actually like really grateful for.
Mm. See, so
And I think
like
that's part of why I've been able to kind of. Hmm?
no, I just wanted to say so like COVID was for you an advantage since everything was came to a halt. You didn't have to go get a job. You didn't have to go back to society since society was like slowing down basically, and you could basically it allow you to transition easier. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a
Mm-hmm.
lot less pressure. And I couldn't like see. I think the big thing too is I couldn't like see my friends. Like I couldn't like have the like. There's no social obligations or something. I didn't like. I just and I'm lucky that I also live with my family, so it's not like I was completely isolated. So I live with my family, and I just was able to just kind of just like ease into it. Like I was easier for me. I know other people had it the opposite, where they could not they couldn't stay sober because they were, they had nothing to do.
Yeah, they
But for
couldn't go
me,
to like
I
in
know,
AA, yeah, in person, those kind of stuff. But yeah, keep going.
yeah, yeah. So it's no, I just, I like, I feel like when I would have gone, I didn't have a car at the time or anything either. And like, if I had gone to my AA meetings the way that I used to, I'd have had to take the train. I just would have had to be going through like, people, places, things. That would have
Hmm.
been like, that didn't happen for me. I didn't have to worry about people, places, things because I just was like, they're like, no, stay in your house. Literally stay in your house. Don't do anything else. Like, I'm being told to do that. And I think that it just made it a lot more just, I just felt like this pressure on me wasn't there that I probably would have felt otherwise.
I see. Interesting. Oh yeah, that's definitely like, me, COVID was something different. Like yeah, COVID definitely played against me, against my recovery. Uh yeah, like what also happened during the COVID time was the apartment building where I lived in was got a electrical fire down at like the electrical switches, not like the whole building to fire, but basically the building was cut off power for a month. And all we could do, that we got sent in hotels, like, nice hotels and stuff. But like even that, everything in the hotel shut down because of, it was quarantine. It was in like March. No, it was still quarantine. I forgot what time it was, but it was still the dead of thing of quarantine. So like the rooftop bar was closed, the gym was closed. Like all you had to do is to stay in the gym, is stay in your room. And it was even worse because, I'm a person, I like to be alone. I I do well alone, but I have my routine, like going to the gym, cooking and stuff. And that was taken away from me. And even that being taken away from me, that's when like I was like slowly but surely like relapsing. Like what else is there to do? Like even working from the hotel, their internet was crappy. I had to ask to work at the time to send me one of those hotspot box so I could connect to like a better internet. But before that, so like everything I would do was just get high, watch shows on my phone. I couldn't even hang out with people really. And so, like, it contributed really to the isolation. And once, even when we got back to the building, I got back to my apartment, I wasn't able to go back to my old bits of cleaning up, of like cooking. I was just the same guy who stayed in that room, isolating all the time. So, yeah, COVID did a number on me in addition to that fire. But I understand your point of view, coming like, especially if you you feel obliged to like attend some social events or like hang out with friends. I can see how COVID was definitely an opportunity for you to not go to those things. Um,
Yeah,
but
it was
yeah,
like a way to like continue kind of like working on myself too and like being with myself, like which I think is a really important thing in recovery. But that's the thing too. Like I now I have all these routines and stuff, and I think about it sometimes. I'm like, man, if I couldn't do this, I think routines are also like really important in recovery, like structure, stuff like that. So I can only imagine what it would feel like to have that like ripped out from under you,
yeah, it
like,
was it was
and
not
like,
fun.
all right, just sit at home. Yeah, I just feel like I feel weird being like, I was lucky that COVID happened, but like, I really don't know if I would have had, that sobriety time if it hadn't. I don't know, like, it kind of scares me how I thought I was a lot stronger than I was. I think back
Mhm.
to it and I'm like, wow, imagine if you had to do all this stuff and all this pressure and it gave me like time to grow. But I was coming from a different standpoint than most like I don't know, like 99.9% of the population. They weren't like coming right out of 3 months of inpatient rehab. It was I feel like fortunate for that, and
Yeah,
a lot of that stability and that routine that I have, I was able to, even though I had a relapse, like I didn't go back to like square one. Um, because I had this, you know, strength, I guess, that I built up during that time.
I see. So that leads me to my next questions. What are the challenges that you face in your recovery? What makes it hard for you to stay sober in general?
Um, Me. I make it's all me. Everything is me, my brain. I overthink all the time. Like sometimes I just, whenever I'd want to, like, I just wish I could have a drink, right? Like it's just slow my brain down. I know that that's not a thing I can ever do. Like and I know everyone says that, and generalizes for all alcoholics and addicts, but whatever. I know for me, there's no such thing as I'm going to have a drink. That's never happened ever, really. I
Hmm.
just, so sometimes I just wish, I could take the edge off of things, but, I can't, once I have it where like the seal is open, where I can dig into that, box or bag of whatever tricks, I can't stop thinking about it. I keep going into it. Like I get obsessed with it. So it's that need for instant gratification. It's and I've been able to find it in all different ways throughout my life. But I think the hardest thing um is just my emotions and stuff. Like this time, this relapse I had a lot of there's like two big. I mean, there was that surgery, obviously, that was I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't had that surgery. But it was just like here is this, and I was also like knocked down. Like I didn't expect that I was going to be bedridden for that long. So I wasn't even anticipating that. I'm bedridden. They're like, here is this bottle of pills next to you. Don't get obsessed with it. And that didn't work out for me. But I was very I think I was also like very go 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 rushing, like that pause button that I had during COVID. Like I kind of like lessened up, and I was going to school full time, and I was working two jobs, and I was in this relationship that was really really emotionally terrible. He wasn't a terrible person at all. Just the two of us together, it was awful. And I was not, I wasn't really involved in my recovery. I was hardly involved in my recovery. I wasn't going to meetings. I'd go to a meeting like once a month, maybe. Um, and I kept putting it on the back burner, like, oh, I'll start doing that after this. I'll start doing that after this. And my spirituality too. I'm not a religious person, but I think that's part of what helped me. And I just was not everything like that was on the back burner for like all this stuff, like the tangible things of like getting a job and getting a career and doing this, and getting money and getting on my own two feet. Like that all was put in front of like my spiritual, like emotional health. And it just all kind of came crumbling down.
I see. So, like, what's different this time? How are you able to compartmentalize like your objective and go to your day to day?
Well, I feel like I guess I just that's a good question. I guess I went back to rehab. It's really that sounds like a simple answer, but like I was
Hmm.
like I need help, and I go to rehab every day right now, and I go to meetings, and
Hmm.
something didn't, whatever happened last time, something didn't click, or I didn't continue something, and I never like I've been to rehab like so many times. I've only engaged in rehab, like where I actually was paying attention and trying. Uh, like this is my second time. Like there was that first time when I was upstate for 3 months, and then this is my second time where I want to be sober. Like this is I want this,
Hmm.
and I just fortunately, like the counselor that we had, Joe, like it's so funny. It's like so perfect for what I need right now, because we talk about just like I know all this stuff now about like avoid people, places, things, and this and whatever, but it's about being able to like deal with life, like just deal with adversity, and just
Yeah,
you can control your emotions, like that like you could it's you're in your hand to control how you feel. And I guess I kind of you know I like forgot that. And that's the thing too with when you have drugs or whatever your addiction is, when you have that you can reach out to, you forget how strong you can be. And
yeah.
I think that's what happened to me too, is like once I had that escape button I could push, where I could take those pills, like I just became so weak, because it's just like you forget your strength. You just go to that all the time. And I don't want to forget my strength this time. I want to, and I need to balance. That's, I think, the biggest thing right now that I did not learn that. Right now, this time around, I need to learn
Hmm.
how to balance things.
Yeah, I mean, like,
So, and I think
because
I'm doing.
yeah, because adversity, you are doing great. Let's put that aside. Like, you are doing great right now. But the thing that what I'm asking this question, or what's different now, because adversity is always going to come try your way, going to come your way. You're always going to be tested by new things, by new, relationships, or like, you know, family trauma, or like, work trauma, or anything. Like, adversity is not going away, but something I noticed change when, I didn't know you before, but I can tell that this time you really want it. And there must be somewhere where you told yourself that, hey, I must make some changes this time. And dealing with adversity daily, or like, being in control, like, thanks to our counselor Joe, who still, by the way, didn't listen to any episode of this podcast. He always tells me he's
I
gonna
know, I
listen to
know.
them. I'll be
He
there.
told me this morning he's gonna do it, so
Oh,
we'll
you
see.
see, that guy is not serious, man. Shout out to Joe. But yeah, like, even the approach that we had in when we're together, about stoicism and the things that are in control, that, or that the things that are out of your control, you should not pay that much attention to it, because they are out of your control. Focus on the things that you can control, and you can always decide how to react to things, even if you cannot decide what are the things that are going to happen to you. Uh, what do you think of, like, because this is the first time I was, like, really in a program where I'm learning stuff. I mean, this is my second go around in sobriety. The first time I didn't learn much, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. And I feel like, what do you think about the different tools in recovery? What's your care package? What do you pull in your toolbox when it comes to recovery? Like, you told me you have AA. What else?
I actually, I love smart recovery. That smart recovery, like actually, like I it really feel like it saved my life at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been in and out of rehab so long. I never look at any of my rehab stints or attempts at sobriety, whatever. I never look at them as a waste of time or a wasted effort. I've learned something from every single one of those times, every single one of those times. And a lot of stuff that I've heard, it's funny, like I've heard these same things over and over again, and it just they didn't click until I was ready to stop. But for me, with smart recovery, what really helped me with it is they tell, it's like brain science. Honestly, like I'm a science, I'm spiritual, but I'm like my spirituality is grounded in
Mm-hmm.
science. Like
Mm-hmm.
that,
I get that.
to be honest, I was like a staunch atheist, and then I heard that like atoms react differently when they're being observed, and it blew my mind, and it made me understand this like concept of like consciousness and how consciousness is something spiritual to me. And then I got into like Buddhism. Buddhism is really similar to Stoicism. I feel like it's kind of like the Eastern equivalent where you can't change things, you have to accept things. But and that helped me a lot. But with the brain science stuff too. And there's a book called Buddha's Brain about how Buddhism, like even though it's been around for thousands and thousands of years, like all of the brain science we're learning today like correlates with it. It's like in meditation and mindfulness and stuff like that. But the big thing that I remembered is that when every time that you give into an urge, like you are reinforcing it. And every time that you don't, you're weakening it. And like, I don't know that just, I just felt like I was in control. Like I felt like every single time that I didn't give into it, like was not, I was making myself stronger. And it's just hard to feel that way when you're so weak and you want to do, give into it. And I think acceptance, that's another thing I did not practice at all.
Mm-hmm.
In my like, the 3 years I was sober, like I was really angry and I didn't like accept when people like didn't like make sense to me or they weren't logical. And that was like, I mean, I've been doing that since I was like born. Um, but I mean, and especially the program that I'm in now, like it's just you have to accept things. And I know it's a serenity prayer, but it's really the serenity prayer is so true. Like it's so. I mean, that's just kind of the key to life. And I know that sounds like I'm just like some AA, like whatever, but it's not about
No,
AA.
I
It's
mean,
about
speak
like
your
that's for
mind. Yeah.
anybody. Yeah, no, but like that's like for anybody. I don't care if you're an addict, whatever, nothing. It's just like that you have to, that's what stoicism is, it's Buddhism is, it's everything. And I guess I was really struggling with the wisdom to know the difference part of the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I just kept trying to like change everything, and I was very like, aggressive with my family a lot too. Like, and I live with my family. I depend on my family. I'm a mom, and my mom, my son's autistic, and my mom
Hmm.
I mean, my mom basically raised my son, but so I have all this anger for these people that are helping me. And it just, it was a recipe for, it wasn't healthy. It's all coming from within me. And and I try to do with everything in life, but like, especially with addiction, like, okay, what did I learn from this? Like, what did I learn from this relapse? What am I going to learn from this? And it's, there were just things that were unhealthy about me that I needed to get healthy.
Okay.
And I mean, could I have figured that out before I relapsed? Maybe, but maybe not. So ultimately, I want to be grateful for what happened because, I can feel myself getting healthier than I've ever been in my life emotionally.
It's great that you are able to make a inventory of like your previous experience, even of your relapses. Um, I would just want to circle back to a part where you said like you relapsed like long before, like you didn't realize you relapsed when you got that surgery. There are like some AA mottos, like phrases that are like, one of them is the relapse before the relapse, which is one that I personally hate because I think it's too simplistic. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think about that one? Relapse happened before the relapse. Like, I can always counter the argument with a relapse happened before the relapse, before that relapse. Like, what do you set? Like, I understand the idea behind it that usually people tend to drop their habit that kept them sober. But I believe that are like cases where you can be going to church regularly or going to meetings regularly and still relapse. And how do you explain that? So what's your take on
Yeah,
the relapse before the relapse?
I feel like it's just like such a confluence of events that happens for me, like, and it happens for everybody. I don't think there's like everybody or like, I mean, I look back at it and I'm like, well, yeah, clearly that was going to happen. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that. Like, I don't know how I would have known. Like, wow, I'm like really spiritually empty. Like, I just, oh, like, it's hard to like you said, like take inventory of yourself. I mean, maybe that's why the 12 steps work so much. You're taking this inventory of yourself every day. I think that's just important. Just you know, um, I kind of say that like I feel like it's as in recovery, like as people in recovery, like we get to know ourselves better than most people ever will because we have
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like if we want to recover, we have to analyze why we're doing everything and what was our intention here, what was the outcome, was
Mm-hmm.
that good, was that bad, in a way that like most people are on autopilot and they're just not going to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was on autopilot. I wasn't doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't, but I feel like, I mean, but then something made, then I had a surgery come along. I could have been on autopilot for who knows how long and never have relapsed. So that's why I'm almost like I'm grateful for it because I could tell that I'm better here at the other end of it than I was before.
Mm-hmm.
But people's lives change. My life was so different, like compared to when I first got sober. I was like homeless. I was insane. It was just, I was so different to this time around. Like, I don't know how I could have, I think whatever tools I was using in the beginning, like I had to have, they have to change eventually. My life was so different. Maybe I didn't
Mm-hmm.
change them appropriately or something. Um, but we have to like adapt and and it's hard because I know myself, like, if I was like, oh yeah, relapse is okay, I could just picture myself as my, my addict mind being like, oh, you're feeling like, a little empty today, Katie. Why don't you go relapse and figure it out? Like you can't, you can't like it can't be that way. Or
Hmm.
I'll take advantage of it, but there's a reason that something happens, but I don't think that I didn't see it coming. I did not see that coming for myself. I can look back like hindsight 2020 and I see like I wasn't doing XYZ wrong, but like or I was doing XYZ wrong or wasn't doing it right.
Yeah, but
But
at the time you couldn't
and
have seen it. Yeah, at the time you couldn't have seen it. Like at the
no,
time things were happening, you could not have seen it.
no. I mean, I just everything I thought I was fine. I thought I was strong enough, and that's what I mean. Like it's just so many different things. Like I don't know. Like, what if I didn't have that surgery? Would I have relapsed? Like I don't know. But so like, how could the relapse happen before the relapse? Like because I don't even know. There's just so many
Yeah,
things that come together, and I just and I think that like we also it's like in recovery, people don't talk about it as much. Like I think we talk about relapse like in the beginning when we're first getting going, and like oh I relapsed after this amount of weeks or whatever. But like it could happen at any point. Like I know people that go out after like 25 years or something. There's a guy in my A group that he was out for he had like 30 years of sobriety. It could just happen to anybody at any point, and um I don't know. It's hard to balance like just having like that healthy fear of it without being like I don't know. It's complicated. I think it's complicated. That's my answer.
all right, all right. So what about then relapse? I mean, relapse being part of recovery. Are you more tolerant to that? I mean, I'm going to those mottos today because
Yeah.
you go to the room today, but you go to the room too. So what about the one relapse is part of recovery? How does that sit with you?
I think it doesn't have to be like my
Hmm.
grandfather was an alcoholic, right? And he
Hmm.
went to what the moment he's like, I'm gonna stop drinking. I mean, he went to rehab, and never drank again. And so I know it happens. Like I know, and I was born after he got sober, and he stayed sober my whole life. So my family was kind of like, well, grandpa went to rehab one time, and I'm like, well, that's not normal. Like that's
Yeah,
weird. Like good for him, but like
yeah.
most of us, it's just not the nature of this affliction. It's just not, but it can be. Of course it can be. I feel
Hmm.
like people don't want to discourage. You don't want to discourage somebody who's like their first time around, because it's like, oh well,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to do this like 8 more times. That's not necessarily true, but like relapse, whether it happens to you or not, is part of recovery because it's like
Uh-huh.
always there. It's a part of what this is. It's something that could happen to you. It's like saying like, well, death isn't a part of life. Like, but
Uh-huh.
not that relapse is death, but you know what I mean. It's just like it doesn't. You maybe if you don't experience it, it's part of something that you're anticipating. No matter what. Um, and like I always have this thing where people are like, oh, I'm a recovered addict or whatever. And I hate that because I just like no offense to anybody, but like I
No,
feel like you're
speak your
not
mind. Speak
respecting
your
the
mind.
technology. Like I feel like you're not respecting your problem and you're not aware of your problem if you can like say that you're recovered and that's it and you're done. And it's like almost
Yeah.
like not arrogant, but it's just like naive, I think.
Yeah.
Like
Naive.
you
I
don't know
will
what could
I will
happen
I
to
will
you.
go there with you. Yeah. I think it's naive too. Like me, the relapse part of recovery is for me the YOLO of the recovery thing. Like, you remember YOLO, you only live once. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, obviously.
I still say YOLO. I literally
I
said it this
mean,
morning. So
nah.
yeah.
I mean,
Anyways,
obviously, it's obvious, but I think it has to do also with your intentions when somebody says relapse is part of recovery. Is this come from somebody who doesn't care anymore and just want to jump, back into their old habits and be like, don't want to use consequential thinking? Or does it come from somebody who woke up and be like, all right, I relapse. I fucked up. I don't want to dwell on it. Relapse was part of my recovery. Let's build something new again. You see those two different approaches as like, and the problem I have with some of those mottos in AA is that they're like torn around without the weight of the words or the weight of their meaning. Like
mhm.
you go in the room, people tell you like minty makers make it, or like two dead batteries don't start a car. That's another one too. Like, people who you cannot find, like, don't date, or you cannot find like one. Two dead batteries don't start a car is in reference of like if two people are in AA, they cannot help each other. And what's funny is like when I was in the convention in back in October, at that AA convention of young people in AA, there was a speakers on they found themselves in the rooms and they were talking about relationship and AA, which is like a not taboo, but a very complicated topic because you know if you want to surrender yourself of people who are like-minded and sober and stuff, it will happen naturally that some people gravitate toward each other. And some people might be great for your recovery, others not. So how do you pick who is in your team? And how do you, and I don't think it's fair because of some AA motto just to dismiss. I think it has to be like analyzed case by case and it depends on how you feel. What's your take on that?
I think that it's a lot easier for most people to not analyze anything and just listen. You know what I mean? Like some
I
people,
mean, yeah.
that's what they need. But I also think that if you have the capability to analyze things, you're not going to work well in an environment where it's telling you not to analyze things and not to, like, everyone's different. Like, everybody is, that's why I take like a very like holistic approach to recovery. Like there's just different things everywhere because it's like, I understand those suggestions about relationships and I get it because it's it's relationships can get so emotionally like messed up. But like I didn't get into a relationship until I had all like 2 years as sober, and like I know that that contributed to everything. It's a
Hmm.
matter. It's everybody's different, you know. But I guess it's just easier for people to just listen to follow. Like I'm just seeing like for some people that's what they need, and some people it's just easier for them to follow rules and not analyze everything. And like honestly, I think for everybody, it's probably easier not to analyze everything because it's just like that's brain power, right? But I mean, a lot of stuff. I think a problem I have with AA is it depends on the group. It depends on who you're talking to too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely. It depends a
but it's
lot of the
it's
group.
like yeah, and it's hard. I always tell people like you have to go to different groups because all of them are so different.
Hmm.
Um, like there's this thing they say where it's just like if you follow our path, then you're going to recover. And if you didn't, then I mean, if you didn't recover with AA, then you didn't follow our path, obviously.
Yeah. Oh,
And I'm like,
that's
I
pretentious
don't
as
like
hell.
that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like that. And I actually really like the big book a lot. Like I relate to it a lot.
Oh no,
I
yeah, I
find
read the
so much
big book.
wisdom.
I do like the big book. Yeah.
I love the big book. So
Yeah.
I love the big book. I love the fellowship, but like sometimes where those two things converge, I like there's just stuff there that I don't like where
Hmm.
people are they take it very like it's like scripture, but it's their own interpretation of the scripture. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but some people, I think that some people need flexibility and some people don't. Like it's for them, it's everybody's different, and I guess it's just people. I don't. Some people need structure like right away, so they need someone to tell them what to do all the time. But some people,
Hmm.
you know, that doesn't help them. But I think sometimes it's like, well, how can you tell if you're not comfortable with something? Is that because you're going outside of your comfort zone and you're growing? Or
Yeah.
is it because this really does not mess with integrity? I struggle with
Yeah.
that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm like, is this
This is.
because I'm uncomfortable? Yeah. Is this
Hmm.
uncomfortable because I'm supposed to grow here and accept things, or is this
Hmm.
uncomfortable because this is not who I am and this is like this is not right for me? And that's a hard thing for me to figure out.
And in the same line, I remember I think Joe that question one time is in the same line I was saying like how much effort should you put in one approach until you need to come to realize that hey, this is not working for me because exactly sometimes you might be reaching the level where it's like you challenging yourself. You're about to learn about yourself. You're out of your comfort zone. That's what it's not comfortable. But there might be also a time where you're just spinning your wheels, and this is why it's not comfortable, and you need to come to that realization. So I'm asking Joe how much time, and in his like fucking Jedi way, oh yeah, it's up to you, man. You need to come to your realization. I'm like, what do I need you for? Like, come on, answer, you know. And that's the problem with like sometimes with those programs is if you, I'm not calling myself a deep thinker. If you're like me, you're bothered by things and you ask yourself a lot of questions. Programs that tells you to shut up and follow don't necessarily answer your questions. And I love AA a lot, but for me, I need also to be able to think, and that's where like stoicism and reading and those things help me so far, to take like a different approach, like you said, the holistic approach of things, like, global, like circular, like from different angles. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, I get it. I get it because I've seen some people who, I mean, were chemically challenged for so long that they like cannot trust their own thinking. And I get that. I get that. I get those people need to follow, right? Like they need just to be safe, to be led in a safe space and stuff. But where I think that AA is failing right now, us, is making the difference between the people who can think for themselves, who need a community of safe people where they can, gather, and those who need to have their hand held. And I'm asking maybe for too much. How the hell do you make that difference within the group? That's gonna come to basically saying that some people can think for themselves, others cannot. And who's gonna admit that in the group, in the AA group? Like, that's like I don't see that happening. So, you know,
A lot of nuance
I guess,
there.
I guess that what I noticed so far since starting this podcast is like people who challenge themselves tend to gravitate toward each other. The proof, you like, and that's gonna lead me to my next question. You, I remember when you gave me the information of Michael Hooper for the Smart Program. At the time, you were not ready to make to be a guest to my podcast. I didn't put any pressure. Like, I was like, whenever you're ready. And it's not until last week or the week before that, like, you told me that you were ready to go to do this interview. What changed your mind? What happened? If you mind telling us.
I thought you didn't want me to come on until now. Honestly, I swear, I didn't know you wanted me to come on.
I mean,
I always talk, you know.
no, I mean,
But
like,
like,
I thought at the beginning, I thought like that, you were not ready or something, like that you thought you were not ready. I didn't think like, it's not until that Joe let me know that like you wanted to be on the show that like, and you reach out also to me, but like I thought that something changed, like, you know, maybe
well,
I misunderstood it.
I think probably in the beginning. No, I mean, when I first talked to you about that, it was like my third day in rehab or something. I probably was still like messed up, But
Oh, okay, yeah.
um, I'm just saying I don't think I necessarily came to a decision like, oh, this is. I think we had just talked, and I kind of got the feeling that you wanted me to come on. I think it's because
Mm-hmm,
one of the guests had canceled, and then you're like, oh, I was hoping you could come on, and I'm like, oh, I'll come on, you know.
mm-hmm,
But I know it for me, like I guess it's just like with smart recovery, especially I was a smart recovery like facilitator. Like I have training and everything for it. And I always want like to go out and like do it for people because I want people to have this alternative to AA because I needed that at the time. I could not I was like I said, I was like this staunch atheist. I couldn't hear all this stuff. But I think it's hard to come on and like it's hard I wanted to be at a healthy place. Like, I'm glad that I'm talking to you now and not back then. because I just, you know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
could tell I'm better now, and I'm coming from a place, I probably would just be like commiserating or something if I come on at first. Um, but I feel like I'm more, I just understand myself more now. I'm able to look at, I feel like I have the perspective of like that relapse. I've done my part and I'm looking at it from a little bit of a safer distance to see what
Hmm.
exactly happened, like what exactly is wrong. And I think that if I had come on earlier, I would have just blamed it probably all on the surgery and that relationship, and I'm looking at it now and I'm like, no, it was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
There's stuff that you can't just like, there was things
Hmm.
that I stayed in that relationship too long. That surgery, it knocked me down because a lot of it was that I was isolated, and I always say like I feel like whatever like what do you call it, like propellant or something. What is it called? Like I can't think of the word,
Motivation?
but like not motivation, but like propels you forward. Like whatever, like it's like, I'm thinking like physics, like in motion, bodies in motion, since it's acceleration or something like
Force?
that. I don't know,
Yeah.
propulsion, something.
Hmm.
Something like that, like whatever like pushes you forward,
Hmm.
like the energy that pushes you forward from like an event, like a catalyst, the energy that carries you through,
Hmm.
like that had run out. Momentum, that's it. The
Oh,
momentum that I
okay.
had, like
Hmm.
that, like I kept, like it ran out and like it stalled out at like, and then I had the surgery. Like I realized it all at the same time, and well, why did that happen? I guess that's kind of like the relapse for the relapse thing is like why didn't I have any momentum anymore? And I really feel like for me, a big part of that I don't know if I even touched on is like it's not just about like my recovery. Like I wasn't working with, I had about almost 3 years and I wasn't helping other addicts. I
Hmm.
wasn't I wasn't really involved in the community. And I don't know if that's something that everybody has to do, but I had gone to school. I had a year of sobriety a couple of years ago, which now I look back at it, I was not like that was not, I wasn't doing anything, but like my head was not in a sober place. But and I went to get my K-stack, my addiction counseling um, certification, and I almost finished doing that, and then I relapsed. Um, and then it's funny because this time around too, with this relapse, I had just started thinking of doing like a career switch. I'm like, maybe I should do that again. And I feel like I wonder that if it is that like me, like there's something going on with me that I feel like I need to help other people or something. But I think I'm gonna do that again. You don't have to do that. Of course, you could just go to AA meetings, you could just talk to people, you can go on an online forum, you could do stuff like this.
Hmm.
But I feel like for me, like I have to, it's never like I forgot that I was an addict. I mean, I would think about this stuff every day. It's really important to me, but I feel like I'm going back to school for that. Um, and I think that is something that is important to me. I need to I need to pay it forward, and I wasn't
Yeah.
paying it forward because I put it on
Yeah.
the back burner. I'm like, well, I'll get all this other stuff done first, and then I'll pay it
Hmm.
forward. And I guess that's how it can work for me.
Yeah. I think that's very an interesting point because for me too, the idea of paying it forward is very important. Uh, like I'm not doing these thing podcasts and stuff for like, you know, personal reason mostly. It's mostly because I think I can help others, by other people listening, by others listening to your story or the story of my previous guest. I think they can help, people who are in similar situation and share their experience, right? And um that that's my idea of service personally. And the idea of service for me, which is also part of AA of the 12 steps, for me, it goes back also to the idea of karma, of putting good energy out there. Like you help others, good things gonna happen to you, you know. And I think that like helping others, going KSAC, or like, talking to people in AA or any idea of service, like you put yourself in a position where helping others, first you're not isolating, and that communications, when you feel down, when you feel something, it's almost as if I don't know, the the universe out there is going to give you a response just because you're like in communication with others. I think that's a point. Like, for example, there were times where I remember that time where I didn't want to speak to, I was, I was basically almost not coerced. I don't want to use the word coerce, but I was put on the spot to speak at that meeting where I was not supposed to speak to because my friend didn't want to. And I was like, yeah, why not? I'm going to speak at this thing. And I did. And it was very cathartic because I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this in the idea of giving service, even if I don't want to, but it's going to help. So I just, center myself, took a group of a couple seconds, making sure that I wasn't angry when I was doing it. I recenter myself, doing like, this is for the greater good that I'm helping, this person, that I'm doing this service. And you'll be surprised, like, what came out of this service. I spoke at that meeting, and not even last week, the person that spoke at my home group was somebody that was attending that meeting I didn't want to speak at the first time, and we exchanged, and she told me how she took this assignment to speak at my home group because of what I did before. So you start thinking, oh wow, you see like the kind of butterfly effect that's happening. And you're like, all right, I didn't want to do that, but I did it anyway because I believe that it will help somebody else help others. And that's why I like the idea of service, and like, that sometimes I push myself to pay it forward, like you said.
Yeah, I honestly feel like almost all of my healing that I got, like my healing from what I put myself through. I feel like I haven't really nothing really happened to me. I put myself through stuff and the shame and trauma, and I've done some like really dark stuff. Like all of the healing from that came from me sharing about it. Like all of
Mhm.
it came from me sharing to other people, and then like that was like spiritual too. Is like I would share about my experience, and then people would open up about their experiences that they hadn't even shared about before. And like that's like a really beautiful thing about this fellowship of recovery. And it's talking about communicating with people. It's like you're also communicating about like really deep stuff. Like you're not communicating like, oh well, how was the weather today? Oh, it's great. Like like whenever we're communicating with other addicts and alcoholics, like we're talking about some like real shit. Like what to me it's like what's really meaningful. And I think that's I feel very alive right now being in rehab and talking about this stuff all the time. It's like this is like stuff that's really, and that's another reason I'm like I think I need to do this as like a career. Like this is what intrigues me. This is what is important to me. Like understanding why do we do this? Why was this the meaning of life? Blah blah blah. But like this is what's like really important to me, and to explore that kind of stuff, and then to help other people,
Mhm.
like kind of figure out their own narratives, their own stories, like their own feelings, their own emotions, and like put themselves together. Just be like talking to them, and then they help you. Like it's no matter. It's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing, and I hear it a lot, and but it's true. Like I just wish like everybody had somewhere to like people who aren't addicts or who aren't in recovery or who aren't alcoholics had somewhere to go to just have this kind of a connection with people. I
Yeah,
don't know how else you would get it. Like
I was lucky and fortunate enough to meet this group of like-minded people called Vibes that are on the island, and are people who not in recovery. I think I'm the only one who is in recovery in that group. Who so often like meet in the tea house, the Cava Island tea house that I talked to you about, and some people are just about life coach, spirituality, uh, what else? Astrology,
That's
anything
cool.
that's spiritual. And the person that created that event, it's every other Wednesday, told me like, yeah, that they noticed that everything was centered around alcohol, all those events, and they just wanted to, have a sober event, and that's how it came to be. And I'm glad because I love my friends in AA, in recovery, but I don't want my life to be centered around recovery personally. Like, recovery is part of my life, but it's not my whole entire life, right? And I want to be able to make friends outside of like the rooms who are, still drinking, but like let's do something else. Let's go hiking, let's go to a meditation, go do yoga, I don't know, let's do some rock climbing, but like do you understand what I'm coming from? Like I feel like a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of things, yeah.
that's awesome. That's like I'm like a homebody, but just maybe like like talking about stuff like that. Like I think that's part of why I didn't continue with being a KSAC or being people an addictions counselor is because I
Mhm,
was like I don't want my life centered around recovering, talking about drugs and alcohol. And I think going to rehab this time around and being in not to like blow smoke up his ass, but like going to Joe's group,
mhm,
I feel like we're not talking about that. Like we're talking about things that are more than that. You're talking about like philosophy. We're talking about life. We're talking about,
yeah,
you know, stuff like that. Like I guess I could kind of reframe what I could do with that career. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be dealing with people, who are, you know, battling drugs and alcohol. But, you know, um, I totally get that. I didn't even know something like that existed. Like I don't, what's the thing too is like it's like based around recovery or like I know about stuff that's like singles events or something. Like you can go like on bowling together with like groups from like 21 to 35 and like it's like a dating thing and like I don't know. Um, but that's cool. That You can just go and like talk to people and be friends and like I don't know. I think that's well, I was just talking about this the other day. Like I loved high school, which is I know it's weird. Everyone like I hated middle school, but high school I loved because it's just like you just showed up and your friends were there and you had to hang out with them more or less all day. And like it was just like this routine thing where you just saw your friends. And I think as we get older, it doesn't happen. Like you have to like work friendship around everything else,
yeah.
and it gets stressful. And so that's cool that you can just like you can have like all right, this is an event that we're doing. I don't know. That's awesome. What's it called? Vibes?
The vibes, like, yeah, I'm gonna share the link with you. That's for sure. That's like on the island for sure. Um, but yeah, so it's just a group of people who don't want to do other events. Like they have like uh sound bar feelings events, meditation events, yoga events, like other things that people do that not necessarily involve drinking. And like there are not people in recovery, I mean, that I know of. There are not also like hippies and stuff like, mushroom in the woods. That's not all. It's like it's a eclectic group of people, like from different walks of life and stuff that just like notice because I mean, I'm split at that thing, but I think like there's now a trend of being sober. Like the word sober curious has been thrown around lately. Like, I said like the past 5 years easily. And even people who don't have any problem with alcohol are sober curious because they're like, wait a minute, what are we doing this? And they're like, and I'm happy for those people to wake up early, and realize that not everything has to be centered about, alcohol and drugs. But the part of it that I don't like is seeing like big alcohol now getting into uh making like sober drinks and now seeing that the sobriety market now can be like profitable. Like if big pharma and big alcohol get into it, now it's gonna be a shit show. Like and I think they have no business. For me, Heineken has no business making Heineken Zero. Like, come on, man. It's like your dealer selling you your drugs and then sending you to rehab. Like, I'm like, come on, man. This is not the way for me. This is not the way at all. Like, I don't know. What do you
Well,
think? Is
I actually like
sobriety? Yeah.
I actually think sometimes, it's with rehab. Um, I think the people who like the individual people who work in rehabs are awesome, like great people.
Uh-huh.
Um, so many of them have helped me tremendously. Like, I mean, we keep talking about Joe, but if you think about it from a business standpoint, like, why would the rehab want you to get better? Like, because he wants you to keep coming back. So I think it's just like it's dangerous anytime because we have such like I mean I can go on a whole rant about this, but we have the consumerist like capitalist society. Everything's about profit. Like everything kind of gets put to the side. It's like you just make profit, boom, So yeah, they're gonna ruin everything. They ruin it, It's a lot of us are in rehab because of big pharma. We're in rehab because of this stuff. I started with on like medication. Like it's really a tangled web, and I think it's weird. I don't know. For me, like I guess I kind of like the taste of beer sometimes, but like I see like they have like fake like tequila or something. And I'm like, why would you like the taste of that if it wasn't getting you messed up? Like it's disgusting. Like, but it's just my opinion. But like, it's
Uh-huh.
just yeah, I've seen that like on Instagram and stuff. They have like sober life or whatever, and there's all these like alcohol like mocktails and stuff like that. And but it's like made with stuff that's flavored like tequila. And I feel like it's the thing is though, my grandpa, I told you, he was sober his whole life. He would drink an O'Doul's every night, like which is like the non-alcoholic beer, which
Uh-huh.
apparently you're not supposed to do that, like flirting with whatever. But it worked for him. I don't know.
I mean,
There's one of those things that
I don't have judgment on those who he works for. It's just me personally. So like some mocktails, right? If all they are made to taste something different, right? Like not, I don't. I think there's a difference in the intention of what you're doing. If you're trying to replace, for example, I'm gonna take the parallel with food. Tofu tastes like tofu, right? And it's good for vegans. Now, if you try to make, you know, something that tastes like meat and vegan, what does it say about your intention of liking meat or not? Like it's the same thing. I think there's a different intention once you make a non-alcohol drink that tastes like alcohol versus a non-alcohol drink that has its own taste. There's a difference in intention. And the first one, making a non-alcohol drink that tastes like something that's alcoholic, that intention is something that I don't condone. Like, I'm like, what's the point? That means that are you trying to fool your brain? Why would you fool your brain in the first place? You see, that's where I'm coming from. So I have
yeah, I get
nothing
it.
against like,
I would never have a I don't want to have a non-alcoholic beer, even if I miss the taste of beer,
yeah.
because why risk it for what? Like, a lot of stuff with recovery is like there's so many blurred lines and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and like so to me it's just like why risk it? Like I think that's like another thing like they have with there's like this big blurred line with like marijuana, like pot, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can take it for this or that. And I don't know that like I still like get hung up on that because like I was able to like tell myself this, time around, like, oh well, I need it for anxiety or whatever, which was it was bullshit. Like I'm not gonna, I was
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, I was having anxiety, but like, um, I don't know. It's just hard. Like I know with me, like if something is going to like make me have like an instant gratification thing, where like I'm gonna take this and ingest it, and I'm gonna feel euphoria in some form instantly. I can't do that. Like I can't, and I don't know if that's like that for everybody. That's what I mean. Like with these blurred lines, like and like the holistic approach. I don't know what works for this person, what works for that person, and I think that's really one of like the hardest things about recovery. And I guess it's kind of what like AA like streamlines that away. It's like boom, just do this. and but it's hard. There's a lot of nuance here with what's going to work for somebody and what's going to not work for this person because we're all very different, you know, what our abilities are, what our intentions are, So it's just, yeah, it's complicated. And I feel like it's almost getting more and more complicated, like, as time goes on. But I guess
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
evolving.
yeah, no, you're totally right. Like I said, I think it all go back to intentions, and I, for people who are like Cali sober, who still smoke weed, uh, whatever floats their boat. Me, I wasn't a big like weed smoker anyway, so cutting that off for me is not a big deal. Um, I've tried some mocktails. I tried kava recently, which is like a good, like relaxing stimulant that's not like alcohol. Yeah, it's fun, It's just like I would rather explore those avenues, right? Than trying to go to like non-alcoholic wine that is like wine, or like a non-alcoholic tequila that is like tequila. I'm like, why am I getting from it? Like, I don't see the benefit personally. And it's not like I'm not condemning anybody else who goes that way. It's just not for me. But I
Like we were
understand something.
just talking about, like
Go ahead.
like with no, no, like we were just talking about with kava. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had a bad experience with it, and like one of my I really the way put me over the edge of my addiction was over the counter medication, which that's weird. And I like I don't like I've met a handful of people. There's actually somebody in our group that was like that too. But like, so I will abuse anything. Like I was able to like because I was in a I was married and my ex-husband would like watch what I would buy and whatever. Somehow I was able to like concoct these things with over the counter medication. And that's what I mean. Like it's dangerous for me. Like these lines are like really dangerous for me because it's like cold medicine can like, be whatever. So like you said, so much of it is about intention. So it's like, am I trying to alter my mind right now? Right? Am I trying to ingest a substance that's going to alter my mind? I can't even like flirt with that, me personally, because I can't stop, you know? So, it depends, and everyone's different. Like, I remember I read this book, about actually a guy who wound up being a neuroscientist, but when he was younger, he had a really bad, like, cough medicine addiction, right? Now, this guy, and as he grew older, he was able, he wrote this book about it. I forgot what it was called, but like, the neuroscience and everything is very insightful because it was like telling me like, oh, this is what I'm doing in my brain. But he was able to drink later on. Some people can do that. I don't know. For me, I can't. I know myself, and I have this conversation often with like family members. It's like, um, well, isn't it like the test of strength that like if you can like control yourself or whatever? And I'm like, for me, I just want to be at a point in my life where I don't want to alter my mind. Like I don't want, because I can't. I guess that's another like AA thing, like with the allergy. I don't believe it's an allergy, but like that obsession that gets like activated or something like that happens to me. Like if that is a thing I can go, I was saying it before, if that's a thing I can go to, like anything that's going to alter my mind, like so much of this relapse, like it was propelled forward with CBD, like which it doesn't even didn't do anything for me, like at all. But like, oh well, maybe this will relax me, and then it like went to THC, and but I mean that's my story. I don't know, everyone's different, but I just
Yeah,
know
everyone
me.
is different.
And like you said, it's like, what's your intention here? And for me, if my intention is I want to alter my mind right now, I can't go there because it's just it'll never end. It never ends well
Yeah,
for
it
me.
will never end
But I mean,
because,
some
like,
people
if
are different.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you because if your intention is to alter your mind in the same way you used to alter your mind when you were using, it's a slippery slope because I think like you might be like the way it might end up is be like, all right, this one is not doing much for me. Let's find something a little
Yeah,
bit
exactly.
stronger. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's a slippery slope. All right, we are reaching the end of the interview, and I'm gonna leave the floor to you. Katie, what would you like to say?
I would like to say thank you for having me on. And I guess like for like listeners or whatever, yeah, just don't ever like I'm gonna tell you right now, like one of my proudest moments in recovery is when I went to rehab again this time. Um, so because I was like, I need help, and I didn't hide it, I didn't pretend it was happening, once I realized it was happening. But just stand up and go at it again. Don't go out there and do whatever. I'm really, really so happy that I came back to rehab and I tried to get myself better again. I'm really proud of myself.
All right, all right, all right. All right. Thanks, guys. This was Stairway to Redemption, and I will see you guys next time. See you later for the conclusions.
All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for tuning on this week episode of Stairway to Redemption. A big thank you to Katie and for being my guest this week and sharing her views on relapse and its place in recovery. Some of you might have noticed I haven't released a single daily stoic reel on social media, notably Instagram and TikTok, because I've been sick. The past week I had COVID on Christmas, so it wasn't that bad. I'm doing well. It's just I didn't have the energy of filming recording those videos. I was bedridden for most of it, but now I'm almost 100%, almost full strength. I'm glad that I took a break last week from releasing a podcast. It definitely helped that I got COVID that weekend. So now I'm back, and I would like to wish you guys Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, the whole shebang, and I will see you guys next year. Bye.